Hello, everyone. My name is Todd LaBeouf. My co-host, Joanne Bassesi, and I are excited for another episode of The Shadow Self, A Journey Within. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Todd. So glad to be back. We have a fabulous guest tonight. The listeners are really in for a treat.
Yes, we are. And so we're going to get right into it. So our next guest is Danielle Filipski. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Todd. Hi, Joanne. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for being with us tonight. We're honored that you're spending some time with us this evening. We're going to have some great conversation, great dialogue. So maybe give the listeners a little bit about your background, Danielle. What do you do?
Well, right now I am a coach, and with my coaching clients, I focus on self-love, and I also incorporate Reiki and massage and meditation, really to support the whole well-rounded mind, body, spirit. As you guys know, when we go through different life changes and we're learning to love ourselves, sometimes things come up physically or emotionally. So I like to be able to use all of those tools when I can.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. We have had conversation in the past about working with the shadow self. And of course, this is what our dialogue is going to be about tonight, right? So I'd like to have you start out with what was that pivotal moment that got you started working with the shadow self?
Isn't it funny? I actually, it was the beginning of my journey with my spiritual path, or, pretty close to the beginning, like the first couple of years. And I was really interested in studying shamanism, and I was working with a couple different mentors. And through that, um, you know, things were coming up for me that I just thought were normal, like normal ways to act or normal fears to have. And it was just like what everybody around me had done my whole life. And one of my mentors said, "You really gotta like embrace or like look at that shadow side and or be okay with the other side of things." And it just struck a chord in me, and I knew that it was the truth. And even though it scared the crap out of me, I was like, let's do this. And from there, it really just took a life of its own. I opened up, and you know how that works. Universe started sending me situations, um, and it challenged me to open my eyes and look at things different. Um, One part of this work that really stood out for me was like the mirror and the reflection in the mirror. When I first heard that concept, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then, until it got to something about that mirror that didn't make sense to me. And I kind of like freaked out and, wasn't sure what to do with it. But I took some time and kept pushing and exploring and got some different answers.
In that aha moment, did you not only view yourself differently, but did you start to see that others viewed you differently?
I would say yes. Over time, I don't know if I knew right away that other people saw me differently. But over time on this journey, like I just, like you start to look at the world so differently, and then you start to view yourself differently. And yes, I think it does transform to a point like how other people may start to see you differently because you're shifting energetically as you're opening up to that other part of yourself.
And you're not afraid of that shadow or that darkness or those negative per se emotions any longer. So you'll bring them into your life or your being or your everyday situation.
Yes.
And when you did so, how did you work them for yourself?
Well, it's been different. That is an interesting question. And the first story that's popping up to my mind is, like I said, I was looking into that mirror and I was working with some people. This has actually happened a few times. And I saw some, how they say it's the mirror. So I saw some traits that for the life of me, I was like, I don't see myself like that. Like I was willing to look in the mirror and I was willing to explore, like, am I a person like who manipulates people, right? Like, let's just be real. Like, that's what I was looking at. And I couldn't for the life of me see how I was manipulating people, but I was still open. I was like, if I'm doing this, if I'm doing something, please just show me so that I can move through it and learn what I need to learn. And I was just like drawing these situations into my life that, were just kind of draining to me, or I felt a little bit undermined in like what I was trying to accomplish. And I was like, okay, well, this is me somehow, right? Like that's the shadow of myself reflecting this to me. And then it took a little bit of time, but all of a sudden I was like, I got it. It was this light bulb moment that what I was drawing in was a reflection of how I felt about myself. And deep down in my heart, there was a part of myself that didn't love myself, that didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think that I deserved a better life or that I deserved things to go good. Most of me felt like I deserved all those things, but there was that part of me that didn't. And that was what those relationships were reflecting back to me. So I found that part I really had to go in and look at those emotions and learn how to embrace them. And for me, it became a journey of like, where did they come from? And it ended up taking me back to when I was a kid, some emotions that I had stuffed down from experiences as a kid, and I just didn't know how to deal with my emotions.
The unraveling, it always seems to come back to childhood, younger years, or the child or the teenage years. It always has a pattern to go back to in depth to then, and it always seems to be that little bit of that quarter out of the circle that we always focus on, that part instead of the 75 percentile that's good. We cycle into only that 25% that we stay stuck in that and keep rotating in that, and have a pattern of going into bad situations or bad relationships or bad situations. So my question there is, do you find that once you're in those situations and you've learned from it, do you remove yourself from them because you have learned and then you move on to your next journey?
Yes, a combo. The first time I did remove myself pretty quickly, and then it came up again a few years later. And because I grew so much from the initial time, I didn't run away the second time. I actually I did like back away a little bit and take my time, and I used that as an opportunity to grow. Instead of running away and then doing my shadow work, I did it while I was still in it.
Nice.
And then just allowed it, because I felt like if I did my shadow work while I was in it, then maybe it would just play out and things could work out. Do you know what I mean? And give the other people involved an opportunity to do the same without having to like end things or whatever. And it did end up, that I went my own way, but it was done in a different way. The first time I left because I was frustrated and I was angry and I had to get away in order to do my shadow work. And then this later on, I've been able to like embrace the situations and work through it. But I did find that I did end up having to still step away.
It's very good. And do you find by doing that your interactions have helped others? Like that people seek you out to help them with their shadow selves, or um, for lack of better wording, look up to you for that because you stand strong in yourself.
Well, I it's funny that you say that because this is only something recently that I've started telling people about. And it was actually right around the time me and Todd had a conversation that you guys are doing this. So I was like, this is so cool. I'm literally working on this with my coaching clients right now. Um, but I'd say yes. I find sometimes people come to me specifically for it. And then there's other times and they want to work on it and they want to work through it. And I've had other times where people have come to me and it's repelled them.
And why do you think that is? Do you think, in your professional and personal opinion, why do you think that is? That it repels them for the shadow self work?
I guess like, and I just really don't want to judge that. I guess I believe that we're all doing the best that we can when we can. You know what I mean? And so my guess is maybe at that time they're just not ready, or maybe they're scared of it, or maybe it's just not their time. Maybe it's not their work.
Right.
And I also understand that I'm holding that opportunity for them. So if they don't want to work with me, or they decide they don't like me, or it makes them uncomfortable, and they separate themselves from me, then, maybe I'm somehow the shadow reflection that they needed, and it will get them where they need to be.
Right. And sometimes they're still on the process of the learning lesson from that.
Yes.
And you might
Right.
you might be the conduit to opening it up, and then they can move to find someone that can help them further that opening, but they might still be on the road to what is their lesson of why they have that shadow self, the anger, the sadness, the loneliness, the jealousy, whatever they're working on.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Danielle, while working with your clients, have you ever experienced a flashback of a shadow thing for yourself, like, experiences that you've encountered or that they are, going through? Or do you find that it gives you a better understanding when those things come up for them?
Absolutely. I think anything we experience in our life offers us an opportunity to hold that space for another person. I think sometimes maybe that's like why people like us have done some of this shadow work, or a lot of the shadow work, and it just allows us to understand other people that are going through it or looking into it, and then just being able to support them through that. So, yeah, I've definitely had those types of conversations before. And although they're not exactly the same exact situation, they have a similar pattern, it seems.
And do you feel by being open and willing to share um, that it does help people, like some, like our society nowadays says that people don't listen, people don't hear, so don't share about yourself, we're just being conceited if we do. My personal opinion is we're being humble, that if we let them know that we struggled as well, that we worked our shadow self as well, that we're not on a pedestal, we're not gurus, we're just human beings as well, we learn every day, that we share that as well, that we might hit a chord with them, that they know that we are human as well. And do you find that that does help them resonate and open up further?
I believe so. I know that that's what I resonate with. So, I feel like it's important. I mean, I just want to be myself, right? Like, I don't want to have to put on one persona on Facebook and another one on my business and another one with my husband and another one with my family. Like, I just want to be who I am. And I feel like that's what we all really crave. And I think that that is what we crave from each other. I just had a conversation with my client about that today, actually. She was, she's trying to grow her business. And she was like, I think sometimes she's a nutritionist, that I have to be perfect and eating the perfect diet. She's like, but then I stop and think about it. And I'm like, well, probably most of my clients would relate to me more if I just say, you know what? Like, I mess up sometimes, but I do the best that I can. And it's like, yes, because that's all of us are really doing is growing, right? Like, we're growing and learning and expanding every day, and every minute that we're here, and every minute that we're alive. So why would we pretend to be perfect or on a pedestal?
Just be one person, one love, one self, and not have all the masks. And I love the way that you said the manipulation. So that was one mask that you removed. Did you find that you removed other masks and layers as you saw like the manipulation one come off? Did you feel like other layers, other masks come off in that? Because there's there can be others attached to that.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure there was. At this moment, nothing is popping out at me strongly from that particular situation. If I had a minute to think about it, I'm sure I could probably tell you a bunch. But that was one, I guess, that popped out a lot for me.
somewhere in your life you must have felt controlled in order to feel manipulation. You know what I mean? That's what I was asking for. That's what I.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes. There was, I mean, when you, oh, yeah, now you got it. Like, just, I was always trying to please other people all the time. Like, I didn't know about being empathic or, tuned into other people's energy, but I pretty much from being a little kid, I would always put myself last and put everybody else first. And there was times I was making decisions because it sounded good, not really based on how it fit into my life, but just because I was like, "Oh, that's cool and so will like it," or, and that was crazy now in retrospect, but it was running a lot of my life, like my not even being aware a lot of times, like what did I really want? Like I didn't even really know.
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing when you work through that and you realize that now. And it's like, wow, that little shadow of myself has, really driven my life to make decisions that were not optimal. But when we recognize that now, it's like it's so freeing, and just to be your authentic self and to be able to just be you in all situations at all times is such a wonderful thing.
Like what you just said about, just being all of you all the time. One of the lessons that I wrote in my program is about, I'm working with a group of women. It just turned out that way. Like I'm open to working with men and women, but it worked out that way. And I was guided to work on the divine masculine, and it moved into accepting the divine masculine of yourself, even as a woman. And that led into some shadow work. And one of the stories I told was how when I was a kid, I was always playing in the mud and playing with boys and like running around. I was a total tomboy, and no one ever told me I was acting like a boy, but just by like what I was seeing around me and around my life, I guess I kind of acted like a boy. So I was having a conversation with my grandfather, and I got into an argument with him about telling him I was a boy. I was like, "Don't you see how I act? Don't you see what I do? I must be a boy." I was like 9 years old or something like that. And it just always made me laugh because I remember it so clearly. And then, as I got older and I started liking boys, like that side of me really went dormant for the most part. Not completely, I still like to play in the dirt and roll around in it at camp or whatever, but it was not something I really showed the world, you know? And like through doing this work and thinking about all the parts of myself, I was like, I can be feminine and I can be a woman and I can go out and jump in the mud and, do things that they say, boys do. And, I learned to bring those parts of me back and embracing my masculine and embracing my feminine and using those together, which I think about that and just how much that translates to what we're seeing in our world right now.
I'm really glad that you did share that, because that's what our goal is here, and on our podcast is that's what we want to share with the world and with our listeners is we need to bring that balance back, the masculine and the feminine as one, that we all possess it in ourselves, the yin and the yang, the god, the goddess, the princess and prince, the king and queen. We have to have balance and oneness in order to go forward and survive and make this world one love and have it succeed. We can't be at odds with each other. We have to go forward in making it oneness, and we all possess male and female inside of us. The energies are both, and it's okay to have both, and it's okay to be a little feminine if you're a male, and it's okay to be masculine if you're a female. It's just energy, it's just vibration. So I'm so glad you shared that story with the listeners, because it needs to be out there, and it's part of the shadow told just to not, don't cry, don't show that side of you. You're not allowed to do that. We are allowed to do that. It's an emotion, and emotions are important. It's okay to show every emotion at every aspect. They're just emotions. And if you share them in a minute that you have them, or the couple moments that you have them, then they won't get bottled up and cause a huge problem later on. Could you share with the listeners some positive advice while working with your shadow self? And this is a question that we like to use because so many people do see the shadow self as a negative, which we don't. And you've shared so graciously how positive it has been. But what would be your positive advice for a listener or for a client or someone who would seek you out?
For me, it's such a gateway to self-love, because when you can love those parts of yourself that you consider to be the darkest, you just open everything up. And, when I say darkest or shadow, those are not things that are negative or bad. They're just things that you don't know about yet. They're things that you haven't brought to light. They're things that you haven't learned about yourself. So when you go on this shadow exploration, it seems scary because it's new. Like if you went into a dark room in a dark house that you'd never been in, it might be a little bit scary. But when you turn on the light or light a match or light a candle and you can see how beautiful it is, it changes the whole vibration. It changes everything that you feel about yourself. When you realize the parts that you're so scared of within you, they're not that bad and they're actually beautiful. And you're beautiful and everything in you is beautiful. And we want to see all of those parts of you. And the world needs all of those parts of you.
Can't top that. Thank you. That was well said. You're really, but I hope all the listeners got that. You are beautiful. All of you are beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Danielle, if anybody wanted to reach out to you to get in contact with you, how might they do that?
They can reach me on my website. It's harmoniousheartliving.com, or at Danielle at harmoniousheartliving.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram and Pinterest and all of that good stuff.
Do you have a physical location that you work out of?
Yes, I actually have an office here in Syracuse, New York. It's in the city of Syracuse at 2000 Teal Ave, Suite 201. And I do see clients in person. I see clients, via Skype or over the phone. I just really enjoy working with people, and I love doing this self-love work. And obviously, the shadow is a ginormous part of that. So I'm so excited you guys are doing this.
So are we. We're very excited about this. So if people wanted to, you have all that information on your website. If they wanted to get in touch with you to make an appointment at your office.
Yes.
Okay, great. I will have that all in the show notes. So for those of you who are interested in contacting Danielle, all that information will be there. So this pretty much wraps up another episode for this evening. Danielle, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We're very honored that you took the time.
Thank you. It was awesome to be here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And everybody, you have a great evening.
Thank you. Until next time.